Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me watching this short video. I'm coming to you from St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Thomas Hyman, and I remember at Inman in Las Vegas in August, I attended a CEO panel, and a bunch of attorneys were up there, and the question was asked by someone, I think it may have been Brad Inman, who said, on a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are these lawsuits to succeed? And the answer was, on a scale from 1 to 10, it's a 20. So there was absolute certainty amongst the leaders in the room that that a verdict would be handed down. And we saw obviously Anywhere Real Estate, and then followed by Remax entering into a settlement agreement, which was very smart of them, in my opinion, and obviously anyone's opinion in hindsight, because Keller Williams, KW, dug in his heels, and NAR, of course, didn't want to settle. And so this really has been a landmark week because the verdict was handed down. It didn't take the jury very long. And a $1.8 billion verdict was entered. The response from NAR really has been very weak. They said that we're going to appeal and we're going to ask to reduce the verdict. And then just yesterday, I think an announcement came out. The CEO was finally asked to step aside after all of the issues that he had to deal with. So it's really been very, very weak. And the attorneys that represented the plaintiffs obviously saw that there is an opportunity, and so they immediately filed another lawsuit. This time, alleging pretty much the same issues and naming Compass Real Estate company, the Real Broker, the XP World Holding, Home Service of America, and several other companies as defendants in that lawsuit. And I'm fairly certain that the thinking behind that is that there will be settlements. And the question to me as a broker and real estate professional is, where is this going to lead? I mean, the writing was on the wall. I knew that there would be changes in our industry. When I first got started in this business in 2003, I saw some major shifts happening in 2005, 2006, where we literally had hearings in Congress. Glenn Kelman, the CEO of Redfin, was grilled, and we had 60 Minutes do a expose about real estate commissions, and I think you can find it on on YouTube. It was pretty powerful. And back then, these allegations were made, but nobody dared to somehow question the NAR and the business model. And so it took a very long time for it, actually to work its way through the system. But it was a long time coming. And I've talked to our agents now for the last 2 years about these changes are coming. And fundamentally, really, nothing is going to change and everything is going to change at the same time. When I say nothing is going to change is, the ability, the co-broke, quote unquote, commission, the offer of compensation. I mean, at least here in Florida, for the longest time, you could literally offer 1 cent in co-broke compensation. And now you can offer zero. The NAR came out a few weeks ago that is no longer a requirement. But, and so, from that perspective, nothing is really going to change. Everything is the same. But then on the other flip side of the equation, everything is going to change, because now this is coming in the forefront to the consumer. Others are going to capitalize on that. They're going to push the narrative. And we got to ask ourselves, okay, what is really in the best interest of the consumer? Everyone in this industry is always concerned about me, about us. We try to do it under the umbrella of, it's great for the consumer. And, one benefit to the consumer, I guess, with the seller, in essence, paying for the commission on paper, but in reality, the buyer's paying for everything. But one benefit is that it gets all worked into the purchase price. And so the buyer gets to finance it if they're getting a mortgage. If you're a cash buyer, it really doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, what is the benefit to the consumer is a question that we really need to ask ourselves, because there will be smart entrepreneurs that are asking that question right now. Everyone is focused on, what's best for the agent, what's best for the broker. I have agents come to me complain all the time. I can't believe this deal. They're only offering a 2% co-broke, or oh my God, they're having a 2.5% minus $500 compensation offer in the MLS. That's not fair. That's unacceptable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, most buyer agents don't use buyer agency agreements. So if they only get 2% or 1.5%, or very soon 1%, or 0.5%, or $500, then then that's what they're going to get. And so all of the considerations and talk is really about the real estate agent and the real estate broker and the real estate industry, and NAR protecting its business model with almost 2 million realtor agents and everyone paying dues. I mean, that's a lot of money, a lot of money being paid into the associations in terms of dues. There's no need in small towns to have 10,000 realtor agents to do relatively speaking, a handful of transactions. It doesn't make sense from the consumer's perspective, but that is the narrative that's being pushed. So the question that I would like to ask, and this is something that each and every one of you as real estate professionals should ask yourself, is what is really in the best interest of the consumer, and how can we make that happen as real estate professionals while, of course, still getting paid what we are worth. And in other countries, the system is run differently. I just had the displeasure of selling a condominium in Germany. My mother passed away last year, and I was taxed with the role of selling a condominium. And as a result, I was able to understand how that system works. Now, Germany is in a recession, and this is in a great location in Munich, highly desirable, but the market really is crashing there. And it took almost a year to get the property under contract. But the way brokerages work in Germany is that you list your property and you pay your listing compensation. It's between 3 and 3.5% plus sales tax that you get charged as the seller. And then when a buyer comes to that broker, that buyer too is being charged 3 or 3.5% by the brokerage to purchase that property. But the listing broker really holds the inventory, and they will advertise it. They have portals that are similar to what we would have here with homes.com or realtor.com or Zillow. And these are, fee-for-service portals. So the brokerages and for sale by owners as well post properties on those portals, and then buyers, request information. And it's very rare for somebody to work with a buyer agent that then tries to cooperate with a broker and split commissions. And I think from a consumer's perspective, and I was looking at that, it's a little bit of a pain in the neck, obviously, if you are a buyer and you need to reach out to 7, 8, 9, 10 different brokers. But the information and the access is still there. So I don't know what the answer is for us here in the United States, but the realities are that a consumer, a buyer that is actually paying for the commission is going to ask themselves, am I getting the value for what is being offered? And so we need to articulate that, yes, we absolutely are offering that value, and we need to be creative about how we can make payment work. So in Germany, for example, if you're a buyer, you're going to have to pay the 3% to the listing broker if you want to purchase that property. That's just their deal, and that's something that the buyer has to come up with. And Germans are bigger savers than Americans, so they have a little bit more cash available for that and generally put down more money, but they're still paying for it, and they know exactly what they're paying for. And so I don't think it's the end of the world if for some reason regulation were to come out that a buyer has to pay for the commission themselves, that we cannot charge the seller for that. And so how would that look like? If I envision this, we're going to have listing agents that are going to list properties and probably be able to charge 3.5%, maybe even 4 or 5% to the seller. It's going to be perceived as less expensive than the 6 or 7% that they paid before. But we're going to have listing agents that are going to do what they've always done, and they're going to continue to advertise the properties, maybe it's going to be prohibited to offer a co-broke compensation directly, which is silly, but who knows what the heck they're going to come up with. And then as a buyer broker, as a buyer agent, you'll just have to work with your buyers and utilize buyer agency agreement. And if you charge, let's say 3.5%, 2.5%, whatever your fee is, or a flat fee, $5,000 or $10,000 to the buyer to purchase the property through you, then you need to look at how you're going to get paid. If it's a cash transaction, it really doesn't matter. What's the total cost out of pocket to the buyer, and what's the total net to the seller? Those are the two numbers that really are the only meaningful numbers. And a buyer could care less whether they pay $500,000 for a property and another $15,000 in commissions, i.e. their total cost is $515,000, or they pay $515,000 for the property and magically somehow the commission is paid by the seller. It makes no difference. Now, if you have financing, I know that there is some talk about maybe getting lenders to allow to finance the buyer commission, which would be phenomenal for our industry, for us as brokers. And really, why wouldn't lenders do that? Because they're financing it right now. The buyer's paying for everything, but we'll see. These are big ships that are very slow to move. But if I were to work with a buyer right now, number one, I would never, ever, under any circumstances, work without an exclusive buyer agency agreement. And if the co-broke is zero and the buyer has to come up with that $15,000 in compensation, my strategy would be to reach an agreement on the price, i.e. the net to the seller. And then I would say to the listing agent or to the seller, say, okay, here we have an agreement about this. Why don't we make the price $515 and you provide a contribution towards the buyer's prepaid closing costs and expenses. And in essence, we're asking the seller to pay for the buyer's commission, because this is now freely negotiated. It's not something that is being dictated. There's no challenge with that whatsoever. And the net end result is still the same. So I think as professionals, we need to ask ourselves, what can we do about this? And when it comes to this change and the shift that we will experience without a doubt, be very mindful that there will be other business models, just like on the listing side, because the seller paid for everything. We've seen creative business models where, a seller is just being charged maybe a $3,000 flat fee or $4,000 flat fee, as opposed to the typical commission, which on a $500,000, $600,000 property, could save the seller potentially $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 or more on a more expensive property. There's a company in New York right now that's trying to break into that market with a flat fee model, delivering the same high touch marketing plan, et cetera, that other brokers are doing for a percentage. So we've seen this on the seller side, and I guarantee you this will happen on the buyer side. And so how are you going to articulate your value to the buyer when the buyer actually has to pay for it? And when you actually asking the buyer to pay you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for your services, and this is not a debate about whether it's worth or not, but there's going to be another company that may say, you know what, I'm just going to charge you $9.95 if you use my mortgage company and title company. And by the way, I'm going to guarantee the lowest rates on those two. And the truth is that they're going to make so much money on title and mortgage because the margins are much, much higher, that they can afford to do that as a loss leader. And a company might even decide to hire salaried agents or just outsource the whole thing. Right now you have Showami. You can schedule as many showings as you want for $30, $40, $50 per showing without having to actually pay a commission to anyone. So there are a lot of things that are happening right now that many of you might not be aware of that are going to require you to develop a very, very, very strong value proposition. And in closing, I want to let you run them because I know your time is valuable. The most important thing, and you see that in other businesses, is the experience. So it's not just the delivery of the service, I'll help you buy the home and we'll make it easy for you, but it is the whole experience. What is the experience like? What does it feel like to work with you, to go through the process of searching for a home, finding a home and making that that transaction happen. And that is where your opportunity comes in as a professional. It's no longer going to be this entitled type of thing. I'm going to get some leads, I'm going to get a buyer, and I'm going to show them something, and then I'm automatically going to get paid, whether I do a great job, a poor job, a lousy job, a horrible job. That is going to end. So if you are a professional that is asking themselves, okay, how can I create a value, a value proposition here, an amazing experience for the buyer, then they'll happily pay you, and they're going to tell all of their friends and family. Just right now, you can walk into Supercuts and get a $5 haircut, or I'm here in the Tampa Bay area. You can go and see my friend Omar Sassin, and if you're female, you probably end up paying $500 or $600 for your haircut, and it is a totally different experience. You're not getting a $5 haircut at Omar, and vice versa. When you walk into Supercuts, you're never ever going to get the level of expertise, service, and experience that you get at a high-end salon. So this is true for any business model. And on that note, put your thinking cap on and start thinking, because this really can be exciting news. Because if you're a professional and you set yourself apart, you set yourself up for massive success. And whether or not we are allowed to or not allowed to pay a co-broker commission, and whether the lender will finance it or not, all of that stuff is noise. Stay focused on what you do, the value you provide, and why should somebody work with you? Why should I use you to sell my home as opposed to the other 22,000 agents here in the Tampa Bay area? Or why should I work with you to help me find my next home? You better have a really good answer to that. If you do, you will succeed. If you don't, you'll perish. And I do think that one prediction is probably accurate. I think within the next couple of years, we'll probably see half of the realtors leave the business because they will not be able to compete, and because they'll actually would have to work. It's going to be hard work. It's not just going to be easy peasy, right? Thanks for listening to me. The background, by the way, just in case you're wondering, that's the canopy rooftop at Birchwood, downtown St. Pete. Awesome place. Check it out. And on that note, make it a fantastic Friday.